In this video, we're going to be looking at T.S. Eliot's poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. But of course, beforehand, we want to make sure that we have a clear understanding of the context within which this poem is written. Now, T.S. Eliot is probably one of the most well-educated and well-read people of the 20th century. In fact, in his great work, his long poem, The Waste Land, his poem is so incredibly elusive, contains so many different implicit and explicit references to different texts that sometimes the footnotes take up almost the whole page, just a few lines of poems and then a bunch of footnotes. Eliot was born as an American, but moved to England and became an English citizen and a member of the Anglican Church. Not only is Eliot a poet, but he's also a literary and social critic, and in fact he is the founder, publisher, and longtime editor of the journal The Critical Review, which still exists now. In his essay, Tradition and the Individual Talent, T.S. Eliot discussed something that he considered a serious problem with contemporary society. It's something he called the dissociation of sensibility. Now, this term dissociation of sensibility refers to something with which I'm sure you must be familiar, and that is the segregation into separate categories as almost separate faculties, thought and feeling. Usually when I lecture on this topic, I ask my students, with what organ do you think? And my students always say, the brain. And then I ask them, with what organ do you feel? And the response is, of course, the heart. But you don't feel with your heart. Your heart is a muscle. There is a secondary neural network around your heart, but your heart itself doesn't think. Your thoughts and feelings are both produced by your brain. But of course, it would be completely inappropriate on Valentine's Day to give someone a love card which has your brain on it. What we give them is one of those ones with a little stylized heart, right? That's what a Valentine is. But in fact, this division between the heart and brain represents a problem that T.S. Eliot sees with our society, in that we see intelligence and reason somehow essentially different from each other. And in fact, in modern society, we tend to devalue emotion over reason. In fact, that's probably been a part of Western society since the Greeks. Reason is a superior faculty. Emotion distracts you and leads you astray. Those things associated with reason are associated with meaning, while those things associated with emotion are things associated simply with feeling and pleasure, which aren't as important. Eliot felt that that division was essentially destructive because reason without feeling is one of the problems that plagues society. Not just in the fact that we can use reason to make decisions that hurt people when we fail to take feeling into account, but also those practices and pursuits that are associated with feeling, such as the arts, become devalued in our society. And if you doubt that this is true, go to the UCI campus and count the number of buildings that are associated with the arts, and then count the number of buildings that are associated with the sciences. And that clearly shows where we put our emphasis and our money. Now, to remedy this problem of dissociation of sensibility, T.S. Eliot proposed something that he called the objective correlative. The objective correlative is a fancy term for an object that correlates with some sort of emotion. So, rather than simply describing emotions to you, Eliot's plan is to evoke that emotion to you by presenting some sort of objective image that has an emotional value, that has an emotional affect associated with it, so he can evoke in you that feeling. Now, when we look at The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, one of the things that you're going to be looking at is how this poem itself serves as an objective correlative. The problem that Prufrock faces is that he is very confused about his society. He is unable to know about the people around him and how the people around him think or feel, what they're truly thinking, because our emotions are hidden behind a constructed persona. Persona in Latin literally means mask. We construct a face to meet the faces that you meet, as he says in the poem. And so piercing below that face and finding out what's truly going on in that person is a problem. And therefore, he is uncertain about the people who surround him in society and how they relate to him. And that leaves him very confused about how to deal with these people, how to treat these people. in particular a certain class of people that we'll be talking about later. And so Eliot is attempting to create for us a sense of what Prufrock is feeling as he deals with his world. Prufrock is incredibly confused. Now, how many of you, when you read this poem, said, "Oh, I understand exactly what's going on in this poem. I understand exactly what this means. Oh, I got it. It's perfectly clear and transparent." I'm willing to guess that relatively few of you did. I certainly didn't the first time I read the poem. In fact, the first time I read the poem, it was in UCI's English 28B class as an undergraduate taught by Eduardo Cadava, where he gave us this poem and told us that this was one of the greatest poems in the English language and one of his favorite poems. And then he played us a recording, which I happen to have, of T.S. Eliot himself reading his poem. And I was certain after I heard Eliot read this poem of exactly two things. One thing was that Eduardo Cadava was crazy. This poem was insane and I didn't understand it, and there's no way it could be a favorite poem. And the second thing was that T.S. Eliot had found the perfect cure for insomnia. If you can't sleep, just listen to T.S. Eliot read this poem in his somnolent voice, and soon you will be dozing off fast asleep. Now, afterwards, I've come to love the poem, and I do truly think it is one of the great poems in the English language, and it unpacks so well, as I hope we'll demonstrate later. But also one of the things I've come to understand is that the confusion I felt is an intended effect of the poem. That Eliot is trying to confuse us at first so that we understand how Prufrock himself feels about his world. Prufrock is confused as he confronts the world because he doesn't understand what it means. And so the confusion we feel as we confront the poem is an intended effect of the poem itself, trying to replicate as a sort of structural objective correlative how Prufrock confronts his world through a veil of confusion. Of course, the first thing we see is the title, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, and one should always pay attention to titles. Titles are incredibly important, and authors spend a lot of time crafting the perfect title which will convey what they want in the poem. Now, this one tells us a couple of things. The first one is that this is going to be a love song. And of course, we know what to expect from a love song. A love song is full of romantic imagery and romance and violins and wine and roses. But this is the love song of someone who is called J. Alfred Prufrock. And the name of the speaker of the poem itself seems somewhat contradictory because the name is excessively formal. We have the J. Alfred Prufrock. This isn't Big Al Prufrock or Alfred Prufrock. It's J. Alfred Prufrock. So the name is formal, which is off-putting and distancing. And also Prufrock has often been associated with a prude in a frock. So we have on the one hand a love song, but on the other hand we have a love song associated with this incredibly formal name, which seems sort of contradictory and not particularly promising. After the title we run into the epigraph. And the epigraph here is a selection from Dante's Inferno. In the Inferno, Dante is being led through hell by Virgil, one great poet being led by another great poet, and he is being introduced to all the great criminals of history. And among the criminals that he meets is someone whose name is Guido del Montefeltro. And Guido del Montefeltro is in hell because he is a false counselor. He has given bad advice to the Pope. Now, this is a serious problem because the Pope is supposed to have papal infallibility. What the Pope says doctrinally is supposed to be endorsed by or channeled from God. And when the Pope misstates something because he has been tricked by a false counselor, the person guilty of this has almost literally tricked God. And so Guido is in hell for having been a false counselor, for having told an untruth to the Pope. In hell, Guido is encased in a flame, and when he speaks, the flame shakes. And in this particular passage, Dante has asked Guido to tell him his story. And Guido replies, "If I believed that my answer was made to a person who would return to the world, this flame would shake no more. But since from this depth none returns alive, if what I have heard is true, I will answer without fear of infamy." What Guido is saying is that if I thought you could go back to the surface and tell my story, I'm not going to tell you my story. I don't want to tell what's going on here. But since you must be trapped in the same hell I am, I feel like I can tell my story because it won't be passed along and create infamy. Not that Guido doesn't already have his share of infamy. Now, there are two consequences from this epigraph that would cause Eliot to use this at the beginning of the poem. And the first one is that Guido believes he is talking to someone who is trapped in the same hell he is. I think it's very important to understand this poem to recognize that Prufrock is not some regressive incel living in his mother's basement complaining about Stacy's that won't love him back. He's socially active. He's out in the community. He's going to parties all the time. As he tells us, he's going through endless tea parties. Prufrock is a socially active person, and he believes that we are, to some extent, part of the same world of isolation that he's a part of. The second problem that comes from this poem is the problem of ambiguity. Guido is in hell for being history's most famous liar. And if history's most famous liar tells you that he is going to tell you the truth, do you believe him? Well, as he says, he has no reason to lie. No one is going to go back out of hell. He's very wrong in this case. And so he can tell the truth without fear of repercussions. On the other hand, he has a serious credibility problem. He is history's most famous liar. And so we're left in this circumstance in which we're not sure whether we can believe Prufrock. Prufrock himself is uncertain because he doesn't know the truth of the people that he talks to. And we're uncertain because we don't know the truth of what Prufrock himself is telling us. So we're caught in this sort of double bind of uncertainty. Let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky, like a patient etherized upon a table. Let us go through certain half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights and one-night cheap hotels, and sawdust restaurants with oyster shells, streets that follow like a tedious argument of insidious intent to lead you to an overwhelming question. Oh, do not ask what is it, let us go and make our visit. Now, Eliot is a master of meter, and it's really interesting how he varies his meter here in order to speed up or slow down the lines so that we get in a line like streets that follow like a tedious argument of insidious intent. It's very difficult to say that line quickly. And then the last two lines have that sort of sing-song, iambic, regular quality. Oh, do not ask what is it, let us go and make our visit. So we are being led on a journey through this poem by the speaker, Prufrock. The question at the beginning is, who is you and I? Well, I is clearly Prufrock, but who is you? Now, I believe that you here is the reader, that this is sort of a dramatic monologue, but it's a dramatic monologue that's addressed specifically to the reader. And the speaker, Prufrock, is going to lead us through this psychological journey, taking us not to a place, but to an overwhelming question. He is going to lead us to the state of mind which gives importance to and allows us to understand this overwhelming question. So we're about to start this psychological journey, and let's look at the landscape through which we're traveling. Let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky. And so we get this first romantic image in our love song. The evening is spread out against the sky, like a patient etherized upon a table. And that's hardly a romantic image, but it's also an image that fits in with this notion of the dissociation of sensibility. Ether is an anesthetic, and the patient etherized upon the table has been subjected to this anesthetic and has been deprived of feeling. So the evening across the sky is beautiful, but without feeling, but it's meaningless. Let us go through certain half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights and one-night cheap hotels, and sawdust restaurants with oyster shells. So what is the landscape through which we're being led? Well, we're being led through the dingy red light district of this particular town. The muttering retreats of restless nights and one-night cheap hotels, the kind of place where you go check out a room in order for a cheap encounter. And what are sawdust restaurants? Well, sawdust restaurants are seedy, poor restaurants where they spread sawdust on the floor because people go there to get drunk. And once they get drunk, they throw up. And if they throw up on the floor, it's really to clean up if there's sawdust because you just shovel the sawdust out into the street, spread the rest of the sawdust around, and it's all cleaned up. Now, it's not unusual for a certain class of gentlemen at this time in history to head out to get tanked up on beer at one of these cheap restaurants, eat tons of oysters, so the oyster shells are spread around on the floor of the Sawdust restaurant, and then head off to the one-night cheap hotels. And of course, oysters are supposed to be an aphrodisiac, so they're heading off for one-night stands in cheap hotels with prostitutes. So what's the first form of love we're being introduced to in this love song? The first form of love we're being introduced to is prostitution, not love, but an emotionless physical connection, which is a sad parody of love. So these streets that run through the red light district, filled with muttering people in cheap hotels, are like a tedious argument of insidious intent. A tedious argument is a long, drawn-out, dull argument, but this one has a sinister, hidden intent, an insidious intent, which will lead us to this overwhelming question. But before we can ask what the question is, he says, "Oh, do not ask what is it. Don't ask what the question is. Let us go and make our visit." So he's going to lead us to the question. In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. So here's a moment of confusion. What room? What women? Where are they coming from and going to? Why? Why are they talking about Michelangelo? What does this have to do with the poem? What the hell is going on here? Well, it will come back. This passage will come back, so we'll have another opportunity to look at it, and I hope the next time it makes a little more sense. The yellow fog that rubs its back upon the window panes, the yellow smoke that rubs its muzzle on the window panes, licked its tongue into the corners of the evening, lingered upon the pools that stand in drains, let fall upon its back the soot that falls from chimneys, slipped by the terrace, made a sudden leap, and seeing that it was a soft October night, curled once about the house and fell asleep. So Prufrock is establishing the atmosphere of this poem, literally. He's describing the yellow fog, and at this particular point in history, London is the most polluted city in the world. Not only is it heated by coal burned in open fireplaces, and not only is industry run by burning the same coal, pumping tons of smoke and soot into the air, but London is situated in a big swampy bowl near the mouth of the Thames, and fogs run in off these swamps. And so the fog mixes in with the smoke, creating smog, and there's something called a London particular. A London particular is fog that has been trapped in the city of London, combined with smoke, that makes it so hard to see that one could, according to reports from the time, hold out one's hand in front of one's face and not be able to see it. It was so thick, so that they'd have to light the gas lamps in the middle of the day because London was so dark. And so this is the fog that drapes itself around the window panes. And in this particular case, the fog has been anthropomorphized as a cat, sort of like a wet, stinky, dirty cat that plays in sewers, that's wrapped itself around the house in this oppressive smoke, lingered upon the pools that stand in drains, and the drains are the sewers, let fall upon its back the soot that falls from these chimneys burning coal, and then curls about the house and falls asleep in this oppressive, smoky, damp fog. So the atmosphere of this poem is this close, damp, smelly, oppressive atmosphere. And indeed there will be time for the yellow smoke that slides along the street, rubbing its back upon the window panes. There will be time to prepare a face to meet the faces that you meet. There will be time to murder and create, and time for all the works and days and hands that lift and drop a question on your plate. Time for you, and time for me, and time yet for all the 100 indecisions, and time yet for 100 visions and revisions before the taking of a toast and tea. Now, as I mentioned before, Eliot is very well read, and his poems are full of tons of allusions to other poems. And this is a particular biblical allusion to Ecclesiastes, a biblical section which you're probably more familiar with from the bird song, "To Everything Turn, Turn."
Everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plan, a time to read, a time to kill.
Time is clearly important to Prufrock. Anytime something is repeated over and over and over again, it must be important to the speaker. And in this particular stanza, the word time appears 9 separate times. So time is very important here. And one of the things that seems to be happening is that Prufrock is endlessly delaying in the poem. That he's delaying leading us to the question, he's delaying asking the question, and ultimately delaying moving forward in any meaningful way. And so he's dividing time up, as we'll see later in this stanza. So what are the things that there are time for? There will be time to prepare a face to meet the faces that you meet. That's an extremely important line in this poem because it speaks directly to the problem that Prufrock is facing. That he doesn't know the people with whom he is speaking and the people that he meets at all of these social events and parties, because everyone is prepared to face, and they meet only the faces of other people. They're prepared faces, they're personae, they're masks. Persona in Latin means mask. So everyone wears a mask to hide their inner personal self. And I think that we're all familiar with the notion of the private self that we reveal only in special circumstances and only to trusted people. But what that means is that most of the people who meet us don't actually ever get to really know us. And so Prufrock is uncertain about the people that he's meeting, which means the big question that we'll find out later he has to ask is very threatening if he's not sure to whom he'll be answering that question. There will be time to murder and create, again, part of that Ecclesiastes passage, and time for all the works and days of hands that lift and drop a question on your plate. Works and days is a reference to a work by Hesiod, the Roman writer, in which he describes the appropriate times to do the appropriate things. And clearly Prufrock is looking for the appropriate time to ask his question. In this particular case, there's time for all the works and days of hands that lift and drop a question on your plate. Time for you and time for me, and time yet for 100 indecisions, and time yet for 100 visions and revisions before the taking of a toast and tea. 100 indecisions means endless indecisiveness. Time is being sliced up into the moment where he keeps being indecisive. I'm going to do it now. No. Yeah, I'm going to do it now. No. Yeah, I'm going to do. No, I'm not going to do it. So he keeps being indecisive. And time yet for 100 visions and revisions. A vision is a perception of truth. But if it's a perception of truth, then it doesn't need a revision. A revision is changing it and altering. So he's caught in this indecisiveness because he's running into people who prepare faces to meet other people who prepare faces. All of this indecisiveness is linked in some way to the taking of a toast and tea, which is, of course, tea time, the British social meal. Tea time is the time when you call on other people and have other people call on you for social engagements. And so all of this indecision that's drawn out by the possibility of meeting people whose real personality you're unsure about is linked in some way to the social gatherings of tea time. In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. Well, it's back. All right, so now we have a little bit more to go on this time because we know that from the previous stanza that he's talking about people who prepare a face to meet the faces that they meet at tea time during social gatherings. And somehow these people are involved in his desire to ask some overwhelming question. So if it's about social gatherings, perhaps that tea time is the room where they're having tea, and the women who are coming and going are the women who are coming in to have tea or leaving after tea or passing through rooms as they chat, talking of Michelangelo. And talking of Michelangelo has several possible meanings, one of which is these are sophisticated women who know their art and they're therefore somewhat intimidating. But the other possibility, of course, is that Prufrock himself might be insecure. And this is an image of T.S. Eliot himself enacting Prufrock. And of course, Michelangelo's most famous statue is David, who is supposed to be the perfect man. So if you look like Prufrock, how would you feel if women were familiar with what a man is supposed to look like? Especially if you're someone like Prufrock, who we will find out is plagued with insecurity. But then again, who isn't? And indeed, there will be time to wonder Do I dare, and do I dare? Time to turn back and descend the stair with a bald spot in the middle of my hair. They will say how his hair is growing thin, my morning coat, my collar mounting firmly to the chin, my necktie rich and modest, but asserted by a simple pin. They will say, but how his arms and legs are thin. Do I dare disturb the universe? In a minute there is time for decisions and revisions, which a minute will reverse. And so there's time to wonder, do I dare? Do I dare what? Well, do I dare ask this big, overwhelming question that we don't yet know? He's leading us through this journey to this question, which he is wondering if he should dare to ask. And there's time for decisions and revisions, which a minute will reverse, which means time to turn back and descend the stair, walk away from asking the question. Not only perhaps turn around and walk away from the room where the women come and go talking of Michelangelo, but also time to descend the metaphorical stair and walk away from asking the question. But of course, as he walks down the metaphorical staircase, he's so insecure that he's worried that women will see the bald spot in the middle of his hair. The women, will say how his hair is growing thin. And of course, he's well dressed. A morning coat. A morning coat is not a coat for mourning as in a funeral, but it's the less formal long-tailed coat that one would wear during the day, a business suit. So he's well but conservatively dressed. My morning coat, my collar mounting firmly to the chin, my necktie rich and modest, but asserted by a simple pin. And yet, even though he's well dressed, but they will say, but how his arms and legs are thin. So plagued with this insecurity, do I dare disturb the universe? How would he be disturbing the universe? Well, what kind of question might one ask that could disturb one's universe? Now, certainly it's not going to knock the stars out of their orbits, but one's own personal universe could be disturbed seriously by asking the wrong kind of question from the wrong person. I'm not sure if you've ever had the experience of asking someone out on a date, but I can tell you that that can be a tremendously traumatic experience because you're revealing something about yourself. If nothing else, I like you and I'd like to go out with you. And the threat of asking someone out on a date when you're now vulnerable and they turn around and turn you down can be frightening. Furthermore, if this is someone you know socially and meet regularly and with whom you have common friends, it's going to disturb all of those relationships as well. It could very well rock your world, and not in a good way. So disturbing the universe in this particular case could be disturbing your social universe. In this particular case, Prufrock is concerned about asking a question, and he's concerned about asking a question of a woman, the women who come and go talking of Michelangelo, and it's a question that might disturb his social universe, and that can only lead us to one conclusion. Although Prufrock himself never actually tells us what the question is, it's a question that is intended to provoke a relationship of some sort. Will you go out with me? Will you marry me? Any kind of question that involves exposing oneself and becoming vulnerable. And this fear about asking this question is one that drives him to this indecision. In a minute, there is time for decisions and revisions, which a minute will reverse. And once again, I just want to call your attention to the use of meter in this line, this regular iambic meter, which just pushes us through this line as Prufrock dices up time into small increments. For I have known them all already, known them all, have known the evenings, mornings, afternoons. I have measured out my life with coffee spoons. I know the voices dying with a dying fall beneath the music from a farther room. So how should I presume? What has he known? Well, he's known the evenings, mornings, afternoons. I've measured out my life with coffee spoons. So how does one measure out one's life with coffee spoons? Well, one sense is that you've measured it out in incredibly small increments because a coffee spoon is a small amount. And so if he's measured out his life in small increments, that would fit in with in a minute there is time for decisions and revisions, which a minute will reverse, and there is time, there is time. But the other way is that his life has been measured out with coffee spoons by an endless series of tea parties. One of the funny things about the Anglo-American relationship is that in England they drink a lot of tea, but they call them coffee spoons. And in America we drink a lot of coffee, but we call them teaspoons. So measuring out one's life with coffee spoons could mean that my life has been an endless series of tea parties. And I measure my life out by going to tea parties. So once again, it's important to point out that Prufrock is not a recluse. He involves himself in society. But it's a society that doesn't allow him to make meaningful connections with people. I know the voice is dying with a dying fall beneath the music from a farther room. So how should I presume? How should I presume what? Presume to ask his big, overwhelming question. And I've known the eyes already, known them all. The eyes that fix you in a formulated phrase. And when I am formulated, sprawling on a pen, when I am pinned and wriggling on the wall, then how should I begin to spit out all the butt ends of my days and ways? And how should I presume? Whose eyes? Well, clearly it's the women's eyes, the women who come and go talking of Michelangelo, and he's worried about the eyes seeing him, the eyes that fix you in a formulated phrase. So they label him. But also when I am formulated, sprawling on a pin, when I am pinned and wriggling on the wall. So the eyes fix him like a bug pinned to the wall. And when entomologists prepare bugs for their displays, they run pins through them, but how they preserve them is they put them in formaldehyde. And the expression one uses to keep them from decaying is that they are fixed. So he's fixed in formaldehyde in a formulated phrase, formulated sprawling on a pin, labeled as a bug by the women, pinned and wriggling on the wall. And when he's been reduced this way to a mere insect, how should he begin to spit out all the butt ends of his days and ways? And how should he presume to ask his big question? And I've known the arms already, known them all. Arms that are braceleted and white and bare, but in the lamplight downed with light brown hair. Is it perfume from a dress that makes me so digress? Arms that lie along a table or wrap about a shawl. And how should I then presume, and how should I begin? So, whose arms has he known? Well, obviously it's the women's arms. He's known the women's arms that are braceleted and white and bare, but in the lamplight, downed with light brown hair. And so he gets carried away with the beauty of the woman, with the light brown hair on her braceleted white and bare arm. And then he gets mad at himself for digressing and says, is it perfume from a dress that makes me so digress? What led me astray so that I get caught up in the beauty of the women, that I forget the journey that I'm leading us on as we head toward this overwhelming question? This digression, being led astray by the beauty of the women, suggests one of Prufrock's problems in the poem. He finds them attractive, distracting, alluring, and that will come up later when he talks about the mermaids. These lines also suggest another problem that Prufrock has. He doesn't regard women as people, but simply as a collection of parts, their eyes and arms that he knows. He doesn't treat them as people, but simply as a group of parts moving together. And so since he doesn't treat them as people, he himself objectifies them in the same way that he is worried about the women who objectify him by fixing him in a formulated phrase. He believes he knows the women, but since he knows the women, he doesn't believe he should presume. And how should he begin? How should he begin to ask his question? Shall I say, I have gone at dusk through narrow streets and watched the smoke that rises from the pipes of lonely men in shirt sleeves leaning out of windows. I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of silent seas. He's asking us, how should I begin to ask the question? And what does he do? He says, shall I say, I've gone at dusk through narrow streets and watched the smoke that rises from the pipes of lonely men in shirt sleeves leaning out of windows. Does this sound at all familiar? He's taken us back to the beginning of the poem. He's beginning to ask the question by beginning the poem over again, taking us back to the half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights and one-night cheap hotels. And because he's taking us back to the beginning of the poem, he gets mad at himself. Because he's regressing, not making progress, he gets mad at himself. And he says, I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of silent seas. Ragged claws obviously belong to a crab. This is an example of the trope known as synecdoche, when the part of something comes to represent the whole thing. In this case, the crab's claws represent the crab. Now, in reality, we all know that crabs scuttle sideways. They move sideways. But in literature, crabs move backwards. And for this, you can thank Shakespeare and Hamlet. In Hamlet, Shakespeare has Hamlet make fun of Polonius by saying, I should be as old as you if like a crab I could go backwards. And so since then in literature, crabs have gone backwards. Prufrock is getting mad at himself because he has regressed to the beginning of the poem. He has gone backwards. He's not making any progress toward his overwhelming question. And the afternoon, the evening, sleep so peacefully. smoothed by long fingers, asleep, tired, or it malingers, stretched on the floor here beside you and me. Should I, after tea and cakes and ices, have the strength to force the moment to its crisis? So tea and cakes and ices would obviously be the food that one consumes at a tea party. And so after the refreshment of a tea party, would I have the strength to force the moment to its crisis and ask the overwhelming question? And the answer to that question is no. But though I have wept and fasted, wept and prayed, but though I've seen my head, grown slightly bald, brought in upon a platter, I'm no prophet, and here's no great matter. I have seen the moment of my greatness flicker, and I have seen the eternal footman hold my coat and snicker, and in short, I was afraid. Notice what's going on here. He shifts from the present or the future tense he has been using throughout the poem in the last lines of the stanza to the past tense. He has given up on asking the question. Though I've wept and fasted, wept and prayed, though I've seen my head brought in upon a platter, I'm no prophet. I have seen the moment of my greatness flicker. I have seen the eternal footman hold my coat and snicker, and in short, I was afraid. All right, so he's comparing himself to a poor version of John the Baptist. John the Baptist is the one who wept and fasted, wept and prayed, and whose head was brought in upon a platter at the request of Salome of Herod. So what's the significance of John the Baptist, to whom these lines allude? John the Baptist is the last prophet. In the Bible, the role of prophets is to foretell the coming of Christ. And John the Baptist is the one who actually identifies Christ when he baptizes Jesus and says, he's here. So he's the last prophet. But Prufrock is not a prophet at all. Though he's seen his head, grown slightly bald, brought in upon a platter, he's no prophet. And here's no great matter. And also, by the way, it's worth pointing out that if you've been beheaded and your head is being presented on a platter, I'm not quite sure if you're going to be worried about the state of your hairdo and whether you have a bald spot in the middle of your now beheaded head. The lack of anything below your head would seem to be a bigger immediate concern than the lack of something on top of it. So he has seen the moment of his greatness flicker. It's now too late, and he's no longer going to ask the question. And now he's too old. The eternal footman is death. A footman, of course, is the servant who rides on the back of the carriage and hops down when the carriage stops and puts down the step and hands you out or hands you into the carriage. So they're the servant who hands you into the carriage, taking you toward death. The eternal footman, who has snickered at him because he's getting in the carriage to take him toward death. And in short, I was afraid. So he's afraid to ask his question, and he's afraid to ask this question because he's old and insecure, worried about his thinning hair and his age. And would it have been worth it after all, after the cups, the marmalade, the tea, among the porcelain, among some talk of you and me, would it have been worthwhile to have bitten off the matter with a smile, to have squeezed the universe into a ball, to roll it toward the overwhelming question, to say, I am Lazarus, come from the dead, come back to tell you all, I shall tell you all. If one, settling a pillow by our head, should say, that's not what I meant at all, that is not it at all. So he's asking, would it have been worthwhile to ask his overwhelming question, which he now is not going to ask, after all of the elements of the tea party, the cups, the marmalade, the tea, among some small talk? Would it have been worthwhile to have stopped the small talk, to have bitten off the matter with a smile, to have squeezed the universe into a ball? And this is obviously a reference to Marvell's poem to his coy mistress. In Marvell's poem to his coy mistress, the speaker is saying, time is moving fast, we are going to die, we need to do it now. Would it have been worthwhile to squeeze the universe into that sort of ball, to roll it toward the overwhelming question, to say, I'm Lazarus, come from the dead. Lazarus that Jesus resurrects from the dead, and presumably having been among the dead now knows all the truths. And if he says, I now know all the truths, I've come from the dead, come back to tell you all, and she says, settling a pillow by her head, that's not what I meant at all. So among the talk of you and me, he misunderstands their relationship and proposes something deeper, and she throws him off. I'm just not that into you. That's not what I meant at all. That's not it at all. Would it have been worth the risk? And would it have been worth it after all? Would it have been worthwhile after the sunsets and the dooryards and the sprinkled streets, after the novels and the teacups, after the skirts that trail along the floor, and this and so much more? It is impossible to say just what I mean. but as if a magic lantern threw the nerves and patterns on a screen. Would it have been worthwhile if one settling a pillow or throwing off a shawl and turning toward the window should say, "That's not it at all. That is not what I meant at all." So would it have been worthwhile after all of the elements of polite society, the sunsets and the dooryards and the sprinkled streets, in London in the Tony neighborhoods, the places with the fancy homes, they would run water carts through the streets during the day to keep the dust down. So through all the sophisticated parties and the novels that they're discussing and the teacups of the tea parties and the skirts of the women coming and going talking of Michelangelo, after all of this, would it have been worth it? As if a magic lantern threw the nerves and patterns on the screen. And so a magic lantern is a projector projecting his nerves on a screen for everyone to see. This is a moment of exposure, a moment of ultimate vulnerability. Would it have been worthwhile if someone casually throws it off? "No, that's not it at all. I'm really not that into you." "No, I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be. Am an attendant lord, one that will do to swell a progress, start a scene or two, advise the prince, no doubt an easy tool, deferential, glad to be of use, politic, cautious and meticulous, full of high sentence, but a bit obtuse, at times indeed almost ridiculous, almost at times the fool." So why is he not Prince Hamlet? Well, even if you've never read Hamlet, you know one thing that Hamlet says in the play. To be or not to be. And even if you didn't know it, Prufrock includes it in the line, "No, I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be or not to be." Hamlet is the one who asks the big question. In the play, Act 3, Scene 2, the to be or not to be soliloquy is the big moment where Hamlet asks whether it is better to live or die, whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, in other words, to endure, or to take arms against life and end it. So Hamlet asks the big questions. Prufrock does not. Prufrock is an attendant lord, one that will do to swell a progress. A progress is a bunch of actors going across the stage to represent a crowd. It would be like being an extra in a movie. I would be one who would serve as an extra to fill out a group on stage, or to start a scene or two, someone like Marcellus or Bernardo, not a major character in Hamlet, but who start off the scene with a few lines. Or perhaps someone who advises the prince, an easy tool, deferential, glad to be of use, politic, cautious and meticulous, full of high sentence, but a bit obtuse. At times indeed almost ridiculous, almost at times the fool. And clearly here he's talking about Polonius, who in Hamlet is the father of Ophelia, and the lord serving the king, Claudius, who is foolish, full of high sentence, offering all sorts of platitudes, but himself is indeed quite the fool, indeed ridiculous. And the saddest thing about Polonius is that he dies by accident. Hamlet kills him thinking he's killing Claudius as he stabs him through the arras. I grow old. I grow old. I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled. Shall I part my hair behind? Do I dare to eat a peach? I shall wear white flannel trousers and walk upon the beach. I have heard the mermaids singing each to each. I do not think that they will sing to me. Like Polonius, who's older, he's growing old. He shall wear the bottoms of his trousers rolled. Why is that? Well, he's growing old. He's shrinking. His pants are getting too long, so he's going to have to roll up his pants because he's shrinking with old age. This is actually a observable phenomenon. As you get older, the spaces in your spine start to collapse and you actually get shorter. Shall I part my hair behind? Why would he need to part his hair behind? Well, because it's a comb over. You take the little bit of hair that you do have on the back of your head and comb it over the bald spot on the front, which apparently he's very worried about because he's brought it up twice. Do I dare to eat a peach? Why would he worry about eating a peach? Well, a peach has a pit, and aging people have weak teeth. And so he's worried about eating a peach and breaking his teeth. By the way, this line is evidence that you need to be careful about what you read online, because I've seen this glossed online as a sexual reference. Eating a peach is a sexual reference. That makes no sense in this poem because he's already given up any hope of having even a relationship with a woman, much less a sexual one. And further, if he wants a sexual relationship, he can go buy one in one of those muttering retreats and one-night cheap hotels. I shall wear white flannel trousers and walk upon the beach. White flannel trousers at this particular point in history are the equivalent of blue jeans. They're informal clothing. So he's going to put away his morning coat, put on informal clothing, and walk upon the beach as some sort of pathetic old beachcomber. Why? Because he has heard the mermaids singing each to each. I do not think that they will sing to me. Who are mermaids? Well, in classical mythology, the mermaids were the sirens who, in the Odyssey, sit upon the beach and sing a magical song that entraps sailors who hear the song and, entranced by the song, go to the beach and then sit there and starve to death because they are so caught up in the song they forget to eat. In the lore of mariners, the sirens became mermaids, those magical creatures in the water who entrap sailors with their song as the sailors hear the beautiful song and dive overboard into the ocean, where of course they can't survive because they're not mermaids and die. So mermaids are magical creatures who inhabit a mysterious realm, but who are also threatening to men because they entrap men into a world that they cannot survive. But even these mermaids will not sing to Prufrock. Clearly the mermaids are a reference to how Prufrock sees women. I have seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing the white hair of the waves blown back when the wind blows the water white and black. We have lingered in the chambers of the sea by sea girls wreathed with seaweed red and brown, till human voices wake us and we drown. And so he's seen these magical creatures in the chambers of the sea wreathed with seaweed red and brown, which of course is a reference to the Victorian clothing, the dresses that they wear. He's entranced by them, tempted into the chambers of the sea, till he's awakened by human voices, by reality, and unable to survive in the realm of the mermaids, we drown in reality. So this poem is a poem about a man who believes he is representative of all people, caught up in an alienated society where no one really knows each other. And because we don't know each other, because we're caught up in this social propriety and inability to pierce through appearances and the faces that we make to meet the faces that we meet, we never really know anyone, and we're never really able to form deep and meaningful relationships. And Prufrock and apparently Eliot believe that this is indeed the human condition.